Yeah, I mean it's interesting to think just how something as simple as an algorithm, programmed to feed you the things that you like, has been used to just like completely reroute brain chemistry and almost like completely rewire certain people. And yeah, I mean, it's like you're saying, it's great. It gives you access to all the information you could possibly have, but it also gives you access to all the disinformation that you could possibly have. And I mean, I hate to say it, but the vast majority of folks out there, I mean, primarily the older folks, because they never had the opportunity to learn like actual critical thinking skills, because, I mean, my dad never took research methodology as a senior in high school, you know what I mean? But luckily, like our generation, we've had the ability to kind of look at that so we can look at sources and we can differentiate, what's bullshit or not. And I don't know. I feel like we need to kind of push that critical thinking aspect and help folks think for themselves.
Yeah, yeah, we have the ability to check resources and check where everything's coming from. We tend not to, right? Because it's not convenient. It's not the easy thing. The easy thing is I'm just going to look through the internet, and the first thing that agrees with what I already thought, that's that's my source, and I believe it, and it's true, and everybody else is wrong and stupid, and now I'm going to get up on my soapbox and we're going to have a big fight about it. But it's interesting. I think about like the Terminator movies, right? And Jurassic Park, where we were so preoccupied seeing what we could do to stop and wonder if we should do it. And we just seem like we're barreling ahead as a species, and no one is stopping to think if any of this is a good idea. Yeah, let's bring on the robot apocalypse. I guess that's what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, different theorists that I've looked into in regards to like, developing technology, they say there's really two options that there is for humanity. We either kind of merge with the technology and become one with it, or we tend to, develop like AI systems that will do it for us. And man, both of those options don't seem like a good idea in my mind because I don't know, I think I'd be one of those guys going out all humane unless there is, some sort of a RoboCop alternative.
Right. Yeah, it's like we haven't learned from the Matrix and the RoboCops and the Terminators, and we're just we're just gonna see. Oh, that won't affect us. We'll be fine. We're smarter than those fake people in the movies, but we're not.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like, I mean, it comes down to that age old question of, society reflecting art or art reflecting society. Because you look at a movie like RoboCop, which was a rental that I had multiple times. I love RoboCop. It was, the perfect satirical representation of all the negative aspects of like 80s consumerism and American culture at that time, the hyper nationalism, the deregulation, the hyper corporatism. I mean, even to the point that it was a mainstream belief that greed was good. But if you look at RoboCop now, and you look at it with kind of like the eye set or the eyes that it's a representation of the society that we live in. Like, it's almost eerily similar how you have something so close as far as like the police brutality, the income inequality. I mean, there's a lot of sci-fi out there that has predicted it's predicted the the sociocultural outcomes, but to a lesser exaggerated extent.
Right. Yeah, that's. I think it's because a lot of the great sci-fi was made in the '80s when a lot of these same issues were first coming to light. That was the greed era and the capitalism becoming at the forefront. And like you said, people thinking it's good, greed is good. Um, but yeah, the '80s were a time that many of us thought we had gotten past, but we seem to be reverting in a lot of ways. um, backwards, and that's trouble. But it's art reflects life too, so maybe we'll get some good science fiction movies out of it.
Yeah, and speaking of good science fiction movies and going back, one of the documentaries you had was, I mean, it was about a shot by shot remake of Back to the Future Part Two, and I I'll always say it kind of sucks because we could have had that that future in 2015 where the Cubs win the World Series, but they couldn't pull it off, so we ended up with Biff.
Yeah,
uh,
that's true.
So I don't know. I guess how did that project come along? Because it seems like such a large collaboration with different directors, producers.
Yeah, so what that was early 2020 when the pandemic first hit us, and I knew a bunch of creative folks like myself that were stuck at home. We were all, under different stages of quarantine and lockdown, and we wanted to do something collaborative to bring us together again, but we were all stuck at home. So I was talking to some other filmmakers and we kind of came up with the idea of like, let's make a feature film, but we'll each do like a minute of it and we'll stitch it all together. And if that sort of evolved into, well, how are we going to know who the characters are? Oh, let's just remake a popular movie and they have to be iconic characters so that you can tell, who's who all the way throughout. Um, and so we landed on Back to the Future, and it had to be Back to the Future 2 because hoverboards,
Yeah,
because Future 1 doesn't have hoverboards, so I'm not having it. Great movie, but we did that, and that started small. It started with just people I knew, reaching out to other filmmakers and saying who wants to do a minute of this Back to the Future remake. We split it into 88 parts, but I don't have enough friends. It got leaked out into like a Back to the Future fan group, and we ended up with 300 and something people in like 13 different countries around the world making this thing that it's varying levels of like totally professional animation to like some kids shot it on their iPad and they've never done any filmmaking before, and it's everything in between. But that's kind of what makes it good and charming. And it was something positive, and that was very early. We were all pretty scared, we were still wiping down our groceries and afraid to touch anything or go anywhere or see anybody. So it was really a nice project to sort of distract people. A lot of families worked on it together. It gave them something to do when they're locked at home. It's like, well, let's make a hoverboard out of cardboard and we'll spray paint it, and then the cat can be Doc, and we'll get the dog to be Biff, and it'll be something. And it was something, and it's a fun thing that we did.
man, that's almost like some avant-garde project. I love it because I mean, going back to that sense of community, right? Like nothing builds a sense of fandom better than giving people a creative outlet within that fandom. Like that's why I think cosplay is such a big thing. Like people love to bring their originality to a character. People love to
Mhm.
change it up and kind of make it their own because a lot of times these characters they become a part of us, and we want to seek to express that because these characters mean something, and no two characters mean more to me in movie history than Doc and Marty. I watched that movie religiously as a child, so much so I wore out our VHS. My mom had to buy another one.
Nice, nice.
Though,
Yes, those are huge movies for me, and I do a Marty McFly cosplay at comic book conventions now and then. So it's it's big. It's a big deal.
awesome. Do you do part two or do you do the original Marty?
Yeah, 2015 because hoverboard.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta have a prop. I still have a Marty McFly, the sparkly. Well, I wouldn't say sparkly. The reflective rainbow hat. That's just like it's just one of my normal hats that I'll wear out.
Nice.
I don't need a reason to cosplay that. But I don't know. Do you actually have the shoes to go with it though? The ones that light up? Because man,
Mm.
those when Nike re-released those, they were sharp, son.
Yeah, I don't have the real Nikes. Those were way out of my budget range. There's some cheap knockoffs that you could get on eBay, and then you have to customize them. You have to put the Nike logo on yourself because they couldn't legally sell them. But they do light up. They don't self lace because, again, those were, I think they've only made a couple of pairs of those that actually self lace, but I couldn't afford any of that. So I just have the cheap knockoffs, but customized and looking good, looking legit.
Yeah, as long as they're comfortable, that's what matters. Because man, one thing I will give Nike props for is they make a comfortable shoe.
They do.
So I guess I don't know. So have you or did you get into cosplay? When you were younger, have you always been a Comic Con guy?
I never lived where there was a Comic Con, so I didn't go until God, 2008, maybe
Okay.
2007. And I went to San Diego because I had a friend who was working at Dark Horse Comics, and he's like, "Come by, you can, I'll get you in with our booth pass." And so I was like, "Well, this sounds cool." And I was so blown away by the spectacle of everything. I mean, if you've never been to San Diego Comic Con, it's a thing to behold. And I was pretty much hooked from then. And I had never, I took Halloween pretty seriously, but I never dressed up outside of that. And just seeing everybody's costumes was so inspiring of like, oh my God, these people are so creative and they did so much work just to wear this thing, maybe one day a year at this convention. Um, it was just inspiring. So that was after that was when I sort of started to think about doing it. And I went to a bunch of cons, and I would start by just wearing the hat, right? Or just the jacket or carry around the hoverboard. And it kind of just got more and more fun. And I did end up doing a pretty awesome Ninja Turtle costume with like a sculpted head and the shell and the whole thing, and entered into some costume contests and won some prizes. And that was pretty fun. Um, I just got a 3D printer, so I'm going to get back into it. I just printed a Rocketeer helmet this week.
Yeah, that's an underrated flick. I love the Rocketeer. I mean, I get why people like don't like it. It's definitely cheesy, but like, man, it's still such an adventurous, fun movie. But I don't know. I'm glad now. See, did you like build the turtle suit yourself, or did you like go over it with latex and foam, or did you like paper mache it and do it more arts and crafts style?
It's pretty legit. It's EVA foam that I, heat formed and sculpted. The head is softer foam that I sculpted into shape and then covered in Bondo and sanded. And then it's wrapped in fabric so that it's not, it's comic book style Ninja Turtles. It's a little bit more the dark, edgy. It's got like the battle damage on the shell and all that. It's
Yeah,
pretty.
did you go like straight Eastman Lair with it, like the original
Mhm.
turtle designs? Because man, that original run of 50, maybe 51 issues. I mean, if you're gonna get into Turtles comics, that's the quintessential Turtles to get into because it's dark, it's edgy, there's a lot of action, and man, the writing is good. Even when they're getting out there and going to like different dimensions and fighting dinosaurs and shit.
Yeah, 100%. It was based on the comics only. I had seen someone again at a con in DC that had made a turtle suit like that, and I kind of just like followed him around all day. I was like, "Well, what'd you make this out of? How'd you make that? What'd you do that?" And got his email address and was like corresponding and kind of. I didn't make mine look like his, but it was the same kind of materials and stuff.
Yeah, now did you get into prop making for like any of the short films you did, or was this or was cosplaying like your first time actually getting into making props and costumes?
Um, I've definitely made props for films, but it's more like picking out stuff, at thrift stores, like finding the right clock radio or the right, you know, piece of wardrobe or something. 'Cause I don't really sew, which is very hard for costumes, but I can, you know, I can weather things or I can customize things well enough. Uh, you know, make a fake gun look like a real gun, stuff like that. But I've never built a prop from scratch for a film. I'm excited about trying that in the future.